Welcome
Hello.
Welcome to Latinx YC, where we discuss all things related to U.S. politics from a Latino, Latina, and Latinx perspective. My name is Clemencia Herrera. Hola. And I am the founder of Moira Studio, an advertising agency that works on political and advocacy campaigns that target Latinx.
And I am Cecilia del Cid, environmental and social justice practitioner. Hola. And an American immigrant from Guatemala, community weaver, and working in media as well. ¿Cómo estás, Clem?
Ceci. Muy bien. I'm very, very excited to be back with you again.
I know.
It's been a little bit, we've had some amazing guests, and now it's back to you and me, which I love.
I love it. I love it.
Love it. So today we're going to talk about something kind of, we were talking about this, right? It's a bit of a tough topic to talk about because it just brings up a lot of emotion from both of us. But I think
and
it's
I was
necessary.
Gonna say that I'm glad that you say that it's a topic that is complex and can be difficult.
Yeah. So today's topic is reproductive rights, women's reproductive rights, and it's but we're going to talk about it from the angle of Latina women, right? Because this is a podcast about Latinx, so
and also about how politically we can be involved with our own reproductive rights, right? And advocating for our reproductive rights.
That's right. So this is the topic is born from the fact that right now there's a national outcry. There was just a women's march just recently because of what's going on in Texas about reproductive rights and what's going on. So basically, Texas just banned abortion providers from carrying out terminations after fetal cardiac activity is detected. It's usually around 6 weeks into a pregnancy. And one of the issues why there's a national outcry is that this can set a precedent that can be a slippery slope for the rest of the country. And there could be, I don't even want to think about it, but there could be a rollback of Roe versus Wade. So, one
and
of
for
the
those
things...
who don't understand who Roe versus Wade is the kind of like legal precedent that kind of legalized abortion in the United States.
That's right. So, from my standpoint, I've been making political ads for a really long time, as I've said it gazillions of times before. In the last 12 years that I've made ads, I think I lost count how many times we've made ads against certain politicians that are against abortion. And specifically, the language that we use is they are against abortion, even in cases of incest and rape. And that blows my mind because I have lost count of how many politicians have been running against this, and like how, and I can't believe that in the year 2020 we still were making ads about that. So let's talk about some of the challenges, right, and some of the reasons why Latinas are very much affected, because I feel like they're very, very much affected. And not only just affected by the legislation, but also affected by how Latinos feel about abortion. So let's dive right in.
So I think the very first thing I want to say, and I agree with you. I think most of the people who are affected by this legislation are identifying as women, but as we have talked about here, not everyone who has a womb and not everyone who can be pregnant identifies as a woman. So I think it also has some implications for people who are members of the LGBTQIA community, people who are trans, people who might not identify as a woman but they still can get pregnant. And especially, so we already know that those populations tend to already be also in places of disempowerment and being more marginalized than, so it's an issue of also, it's an issue of like reproductive, we said health, but also reproductive justice, and about thinking of what are some of the things, and within our Latinx community, those individuals, if women are subjugated, yesterday we, in our, we've like, not yesterday, like we've like talked about in the past about heteropatriarchy. So we have women, and then we have people who are gay, lesbian, trans, and they're, or like asexual, like the array of, this
array,
spectrum, and they're even in a more vulnerable situation. So it's difficult for those reasons, I think, and it's rooted in deep trauma.
Let's say it, right? Let's say it. What does it all come from?
Yeah.
Religion.
Well, a lot of it is religion. I would say a lot of it is patriarchy, and like the desire to control a woman's body, right? If you are tied up to be in a gender role, being a mother, taking care of children, kitchen and house, you there's an imbalance of like how society looks at that work.
I mean, that's interesting, and I think it's a combination of both, definitely, especially in the Latino community.
Yes.
Most Latinos identify as Catholic,
yes.
And the more devout Catholic you are, the less you are for abortion. And I mean, it is a thing. Like the Pope has said it. If you have an abortion, you'll be excommunicated. It's a real thing that Catholics really, even if this is this modern Pope, the Pope is still against it.
But I think it's changed a little bit. So before, if you were Catholic, I remember in the past, if you were a Catholic and you had an abortion and you went to confession, you would need like an bishop, like un obispo, something like that, to like give you the absolution. Now, this Pope has changed that. Like any lay priest can hear your confession and give you absolution. So like it's changed, but it used to be extremely severe, in which you needed like a big honcho in this structural in this highly hierarchical institution to forgive you, right? And I mean, I'm not gonna get into my relationship with religion because it's very complex. All of us.
Yeah, I think we're all struggling with this. But I think the worst part about the Texas ban, to me, is that regular citizens can sue abortion providers for violations, and you can get $10,000 if you win, right? Yeah. So I feel like, first of all, this creates a terrible environment, sort of like a witch hunt, people telling on each other. That's like, the first thing about like breaking apart a community, like talking about breaking apart a community, right? Yeah. I'm going to tell my neighbor, I'm going to tell on, this person, or I'm going to tell on, my daughter's friend, something like that. And also the thing that I struggle with, which is like this contradiction that religion has, which is like, no matter how religious we are, who are we to judge anyone, right?
Yeah, I think that obviously this is, when we think about like this being rooted in like religious beliefs, also I think is this kind of shameful and kind of toxic relationship to sexuality and human sexuality. And how do ones become pregnant, right? Like people become pregnant by having intercourse.
And it takes two. It takes two to tango.
It takes two. It takes two individuals, one with an egg and one with a sperm, and that's how you kind of fertilize and create an embryo. So I think that we have very bad relationship with our sexuality, human sexuality, which I think leads to misconceptions, misinformation, mala educación. And I think that we don't talk, and even within our families, we don't talk about sex. We don't talk about sex positive, we don't talk about relationships with our own body. We don't talk about relationships with how we're going to sexually connect with someone else. Which takes us to very toxic.
It's very taboo, and it's also like, I know that back in Colombia, most women in my mom's generation, they married virgin. They had not had sex with anyone before they got married. So they only had one partner in their whole lives. And so the whole concept of, Latina mothers trying to, navigate their daughters actually having an active sexual life before marriage is maybe a foreign concept, know, and it's like, and it's also taboo. It's like, the daughters don't want to talk about it because mom married,
but I also think
very
that
different circumstance that they are. So it's so even if you can't even trust your mom, with something so personal and private, like your mom it's like the closest relationship you have, and if you're in trouble, you want to go to your mom, right? That's the first person that you want to go to.
I think it should be that's the idea, but I think how we can even go before and say how many individuals identifying as women are prepared to talk to their daughters about menstruation, for example. It's like, if you cannot have a conversation with your child about what is going to happen to them physically, like menstruation, how are we supposed to have a conversation with our children once they begin to masturbate, once they begin to explore their bodies in company of their partners? So so I think that it's taboo, but also there is a lot of disinformation, because if you have had, what used to happen also a lot is people will have one partner, get pregnant, get married, and it wasn't an option. So maybe if they would have had good reproductive health, good reproductive education, they would have made different options for themselves. But how do you guide another person through that process when you yourself have so little experience?
Yeah, and especially, if you're very religious, like if I went to Catholic school, like you don't talk about that in school. Like maybe here in public school, you talk about, sex ed.
I went to Catholic school and I had...
Really? I didn't.
Yes, I
no,
did.
we didn't talk about that at all.
We had I remember it so clearly because I went in a co-ed school.
Yeah, no, we didn't talk about that at all.
It was you're there with your 9th grader, all your 10, 11-year-olds who have all these terrible jokes. And I remember, I have to say, personally, I feel very fortunate. My mom spoke to me. I think my mom felt much more comfortable speaking to me about all that stuff when I was a child than when I became a teenager. When it actually became when I was a child, it was just the theory. And when I became a teenager, there was much more probability that it could be practiced. And I know that she had a very difficult time knowing when I became sexually active.
But thankfully my mom was my mom was pretty progressive in her views, and I did learn about a lot of sexual things from her. And thankfully my mom always said, if you ever need to go get an abortion, I will support you 100%, and I will come with you. And that, to me, that was such a great relief and support. And it wasn't giving me permission to go and not be careful at all, but it was actually just telling me, I love you and I support you because you matter to me and your future matters to me, or like how you feel matters to me more than politics or what people say. And so this is another thing. This is like huge thing about the Latino community, and you tell me how you feel, but el que dirán, right?
Yeah.
What other people say.
Me.
Yeah. What would the neighbors say? What would the family say?
Las tías, la abuela.
What would las tías say?
Tu papá.
And even if you're not religious, maybe like you're not religious, but the rest of the family is very religious. And what would they say? How, if they find out, or like, so it's el que dirán, which is, the gossip. For those of you that don't speak Spanish, it's a really, it's huge in the Latino community. It's a very tight-knit community, and word spreads around, and it could be devastating to somebody's future, right?
I think that there's a couple of things to unpack there. So I think everyone in our communities knows someone, whether they know it or not, that has had an abortion. We all have someone in our life who has had an abortion. You might not know because they don't tell you, because of a que dirán, because a lot of shame. But we all, I can put my hands on the fire. Most of us have someone in our close circle who has had an abortion. We all do. Second of all, this idea like la ropa sucia se lava en casa. So we don't talk about the things that we consider that are shameful, secrecy. So that our communities also, some people think it's about being private. I think it has a lot to do with secrecy, and secrecy breeds toxic behaviors. So if there is child abuse, we don't talk about it. If there is rape, we don't talk about it. And let's face it, a lot of people who become pregnant as children and teenagers that are raped, or is rape or incest, because those are a lot of those things don't happen by a stranger on the street. They happen by people close to you at home, and we don't talk about it, and we don't believe our children, and we don't know what to do. If our children disclose to us, we don't know what to do with that information. And it might be that if we live in a place where abortion is penalized and criminalized, you cannot even have an idea of what to do to help your children. So when we come to the United States, we still carry all that baggage with us.
Yeah. We carry the baggage of religion, the patriarchy, el que dirán, and we pack it all together, and it becomes this like humongous brick wall that keeps us from our reproductive rights, right? It's like this huge wall.
And I think so let's say that you are a person who goes to a place that, and you have three options. You can have a pregnancy, carry a pregnancy to term. You can carry a pregnancy to term and give a child an adoption, and you can have a termination or interruption and have end that pregnancy. Those three decisions are lifelong decisions. If you choose to have a child, that's for life. If you choose to have a child and give it an adoption, that's for life. If you choose to have an abortion, that decision is for life. It doesn't wash out from you, like you have it and you walk away and it erases. Everyone who makes that decision,
that's exactly
carries the thing it forever.
That people don't understand. It's not like you're gonna go. This is not birth control.
No,
this is the last resort. This is the last resort, and many women think about it forever. And especially if you're making them feel guilty about it, they will forever feel guilty about it. And if they're in a religious family, they will forever be punished for it. And so this is not like, I'm just gonna go in and out and like not worry about it anymore.
And not just that, I have personally experienced people saying like, I can't believe you are part of my family and you are pro-choice. And I've been like, you are even judging me for supporting the decisions of others.
Yeah.
Like, even me being pro-choice, which is not pro-abortion, is pro-choice, carries a weight within our families. And I also think that the data is there to support that if we want to reduce abortions, offering reproductive justice, reproductive health that is comprehensive is the best way to prevent abortions. Also, sexual education, talking to our teenagers. You cannot just advocate abstinence. People are we are sexual beings. And we are going to have sex. And hopefully you're going to have consensual sex and have a lot of fun, because that's what sex is for.
That's right. That's right.
If you're not having fun, don't do it. Just say, don't do it, people.
And you know what? Even married couples have an oopsie.
Yes.
You know that you're trying not to conceive and you have an oopsie. Like, why wouldn't single people not have oopsies? Or I mean, there's just like so many different situations. And again, I'm going back to like, who are we to judge? Who is judging here? And I feel like this is supposed to be a country where church and state are separated. And I feel like it's like the church is kind of like barging in here. And we are letting it. And many people in our community are supporting it. You know, I've read enough articles out there of Latinos supporting this and referring back to their religious beliefs. But then they don't really know like how many Latinas out there are affected, especially Latinas that are like low income, for example. Like,
yes,
are they going to have the money to travel out of state to get an abortion? No. So then they're gonna have this baby because they have no choice. They have low income, and then what happens?
I think that if we care about life, there are certain things that we need to be in agreement with. Like, we have to be congruentes, no? O sea, what we say aligns with what we do. So you cannot be pro-life, like anti-abortion, and be pro-death penalty, because that's a life.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah.
You cannot be pro-life and don't care about what happens to that child once it's out of the womb.
Yeah.
You cannot be pro-life.
Government giveaways. Oh, I'm sorry. You can't give in the government giveaways.
But they're not giveaways.
No, I know, but this is not my choice of words.
No, I know, but those are like we were telling them. Yeah. Those are not giveaways.
Yeah.
Those are safety nets that we put into place so that because we fail to acknowledge that we're closer to being bankrupt by an illness, an accident, a loss of a job, than we're ever to being a billionaire or a millionaire.
Yeah.
We are much more closer to that catastrophic event that throws us into a spin, and we need that safety net to catch us. Yeah. It's not to live off of it, it's to catch you as something unexpected happens. And we need to start looking at it that way. And we cannot say that we are pro-life, anti-abortion, and don't vote for good education and children's education, or like childcare or family leave. So those politicians who are trying to say we're gonna vote, I am pro-abortion. No, not pro-abortion. Anti-abortion. Yes. But then you are not voting for all these other measurements that make sure a child doesn't grow in poverty, that child doesn't go hungry, that a child has health, that a child
doesn't go into a life of crime.
Yes, that a child has a good family.
This whole the crime rates. The crime rates are a huge, piece of data that politicians throw around. But if you are throwing a bunch of children out there, coming from low-income families, not giving the women any choices, guess what?
If your mom has to work 60 or 80 hours a week, who is taking care of you?
Yeah.
And don't tell me that someone that works 80 hours a week is lazy, because that is a fallacy.
Yeah.
I mean,
you do what you can with what you got.
Yeah.
But it's more about, I think this all boils down to feeling supported. Like, who is supporting you here? And I think, paying taxes means that your government should support you. Right. And I pay something, and what am I getting back? No support. So where is that? Where's the support? Where do we feel supported by our leaders and by our system?
Yes. And I think as we vote, when we think ourselves as voters, or like, citizens, or like how we participate civically, we have to really think, is the person that I am giving my vote, that I'm supporting, that I am choosing to throw my little name under, behind, doing the best for my community? Are they really are they getting at the root of the problem, or are they just trying to give it a band-aid? Which is when we say we're just gonna neglect people from having abortion, like we're just gonna make it difficult for people to have abortion. When a person who is pregnant has decided to have an abortion, it will go to all lengths to have one,
even to the lengths that will be deadly for her.
Yes, absolutely. So before, I've heard people talking about, well, if you can, if there's people who like knows about certain medications, or they might do herbs and teas, or they will like use a coat hanger. All like back alley abortions. We all know. I know people
that's deadly.
Who have
potentially deadly.
Yes, potentially deadly infections, and it could like damage your reproductive like ability forever. And what happens when people are the victims of incest, the victims of rape? What happens when a mom has a medical condition like an ectopic pregnancy? What happens when you have a late term miscarriage and your baby dies inside you? Like, there is a gazillion different situations
or
that should only be discussed between the person and their doctor. What?
Yeah. And so, I think, going back to, the candidates and who you're choosing, it's not so black and white, right? It's not like Democrats are pro-choice, Republicans are against or pro-life, whatever. I think it's a misconception, because I have seen, conservative Democrats that are pro-life, and there are moderate Republicans that are pro-choice. It really depends. It's not so like yes, there is a divide in the party system about that, and they use that a lot as a political football. But it's really about like why, right? When we're reading up about this candidate, we want to know why they're pro-choice, why they're pro-life. What led them to think that way. And then it's like, is it religion? Is it a personal experience? I'd like to know why. I'd like to know what is it that drives this belief, and that, I think that is saying a lot about the character in that person and about the way that they're going to lead, right?
Yeah. And I think, we talked a little, about some of the information before, and I was thinking like, are Latinas, or is it religion? And I think there's also things to think about, like if you think of intersectionality, probably individuals who are poor, Black, or like when these kind of disadvantages begin to compound, are much more vulnerable and end up. So within our community, we might think that individuals who are older generation, more religion, with less education, tend to be lean more in one direction and then align with one party or more religiously, and individuals who are younger, with higher education, with higher income, tend to have other leanings. And I thought it was interesting that yes, religion is important, but that what you were saying about political affiliation tend to be even more important for how you lean against one of these, pro-choice or pro-life. And I think that it's important. I appreciate you highlighting that there is candidates in both parties, in another parties, that lean in different direction. Mm-hmm. And what we really want is to make sure that we are centering a healthy family. And I have a very distinct description of family that probably most people do. Mm-hmm. I think that, there's blood family, and then there's other family, and families come in every shape and form. If we are really, we want to center the value, we need to support families in other ways beyond just caring for unborn embryo.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And we have just a few more minutes. Mm-hmm. So I think that I'd like to, sort of close up as we usually do, which is mm-hmm. what can we do as Latinas, as women, to help ourselves? And, mm-hmm. As I said before, this could set a precedent, and everything could be rolled back. And it's so many things that we fought for so many years could be completely obliterated. So please get involved in your local politics. Call your congresspeople. Mm-hmm. Read up on your candidates. See what they believe in. See what they stand in this, and also see how they're voting in Congress. Yes. This is not just something that will get resolved on its own. This is something that we need to work on, just like we have worked on it, and so many women before us have worked on it. Because maybe it might not affect you, but it will. But it's all about the community, right? It's all about, what if it affects somebody like me?
I think that is really important for you to say. I think we tend to vote a lot what does affect me, right? Until it affects someone you love, your children, your spouse. I think as a person who, I think I've shared before, I grew up Catholic. I for a long time was devout and practitioner. I remember a quick conversation with my father in which I, as a child, very early on, and I remember thinking, learning my catechism and being well, if God just wants us to be all good, why didn't he make us all good? And I remember he saying oh no, those are the angels. God gave us a big gift, which was free will. And I always think if God's biggest gift to me is my free will, my ability to choose love, because you can only love in freedom. And if we are going to love God, we have to come at it from freedom, not because we were created to love, right? Which is within a religious framework that has many issues, and I know. So just bear with me. But I was just always thinking if I have been given this gift of my libre albedrío, my free will, mm-hmm. who is anyone to come and tell me how I should use it and judge me when I use it? If my own superior being, my source, gave it to me as the biggest gift. So as we think of religious, actually let's again be congruent with what that religion, as a Catholic, I know that my biggest gift comes from me choosing to act right or wrong. And when I make mistakes, I have to amend them. I have to do things to be in grace again. That shouldn't be discussed with anyone else. No one else should care, and no one. So get out of my business.
Right. Get out of my uterus.
Yes.
All right.
Get out of my business.
All right. And with that, we will leave you. Please let us know what you think. I know this is a very hot and divisive topic. So please let us know what you think. Clem at latinxyzpod.com. If you're listening to us on audio only, we are also on YouTube, Latinxyz Pod. If you're watching us on YouTube, we also have an audio only podcast on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts.
Leave us
everywhere.
a review.
Yeah, leave us a review. Tell us what you think. Follow us. We have TikTok, Instagram, all that stuff. And tell us what else you want us to talk about.
Absolutely.
All right.
Huh?
Gracias, Ceci. As usual, a pleasure to discuss these things with you. Cuídate.